and just to say what a pleasure it is to be with the Boston chapter of Conscious Capitalism. And I just sense this is going to be a magic moment with everybody. What I'm doing is I'm inviting everybody. We've got an extraordinary group that's gathered already because Lee's over here in the house, JP's here, Rob is here blessing us, Michael is here, Katie is here, Jonathan. So you could just wave, make any move that you want. Hey, Katie, Jonathan, Rebecca is here. So now we're all good to go. Edda, Tim is here. Mary is here. Hi, Marie. Is that the way I say your name?
Mari.
Mari. I'm so happy you're here, Mari.
Nice to see you again.
Oh, we've met before, right?
We did at the Global Wellness Conference. We rode to the airport together.
God, we have to go.
Wait.
What? Well, that is amazing. Okay. So I'm so happy you're here as well.
Good yeah, it's fun to be here. Thanks.
And Deborah's in the house. Hi, Deborah.
Oh.
How do? Okay. And so the question, we've got in the chat going over here is we're warming up the chat. And I love the way you've said hello. You're actually sharing hello, where you're from. And Michael has shared. So one of the things I'm going to, while we're waiting for people to arrive and hopefully turn their cameras on, we are just to warm up the chat because, the richness of this experience is when we're all engaged. This is not a presentation. This is a conversation. And there's a number of ways we can have conversation. We can have conversation with each other one-on-one. And I'm going to be putting you in small groups as well. You'll see it's not a presentation. So we can have conversations with each other in this group, but we can also have conversations in the chat. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to just put in the chat a comment of what you're most excited before. What are you most excited? Why did you show up today? What are you hoping to actually inspire? What are you hoping for your transformation today? Why does this moment count for you? What are you most hoping to get? And the more I can actually see you putting that in the chat, I will look to honor and serve you well by noticing what you're putting in, and that will help me serve you, even at a higher level. So maybe we'll give it two. I know there's Kelly, what's your custom in terms of how long you wait for everybody to arrive?
Well, usually, this is good. I'd love to kick us off if that's okay, just to make sure that we have enough time.
And we need you, if at all possible, on video, because ultimately the only way we're going to experience community over here is if we're in community. So I would just say, you would never show up to the meeting with a paper bag over your head. So why do that here? So let's be in community. All right, so I'm going to pivot it back to, I'm co-facilitating over here with Kelly Tuning and Michael Hearth. And I just want to say we've spent a good period of time designing the session for you. We've pivoted in a major way from what we were going to do. And as you'll see, things have dramatically shifted because life is the curriculum, and something else has showed up at this point in all of us, in this experience where I believe I have the ability to serve you at an even higher level here today. And I just want to Kelly, if I can sing your praises before you sing Michael's praises. Kelly, you are the program chair for the Boston chapter of Conscious Capitalism. Did I get that right? But you are, not only are you the program chair, I would say you are the program chair extraordinaire. So in my work, everything has internal congruence. Everything has internal congruence, meaning the way that people show up in the privacy of the moments. This is a public moment, so you can imagine that we're all over here looking to show up at our best. What was extraordinary because I revealed to her, to Kelly, my situation. And of course she was very moved. She responded with unbelievable compassion. And she said, Danny, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to do this? I want to honor whatever serves you best. And I responded, what serves me best is being here to serve your chapter. This is life-giving work for me. So the sensitivity that she approached this with actually helped me understand that Kelly is the embodiment of a deeply conscious, awakened leader. So Kelly, over to you.
Wow. Well, thank you. That was unexpected. So thank you for those very kind words. For those of you who I have not met personally, I welcome you to the final event of 2020 for the Boston chapter. We are focusing on the tenet of conscious capitalism, of conscious leadership. And I was looking forward to this program prior to the pivot that we've done here. And I'm even more excited and confident that this is going to be a very meaningful experience for everyone that is participating today. So thanks for joining us. We're thrilled to have you. I just thought I would mention the purpose of the Boston chapter. I think it's appropriate to reflect on it because I think it is going to be uniquely kind of all the boxes are going to be ticked with this one event here. So the Boston chapter's purpose is we strive to connect, to educate, and inspire leaders and workers to consciously build businesses that positively impact the world. And with our two speakers here today, I think it is for sure going to be educational. It is going to be very inspiring. And it's going to be, they're going to foster connection amongst us. And so I'm thrilled that all of you are able to participate today. So I just hope this is a wonderful experience for you, as I'm sure it will be. So let me just introduce our first speaker, Michael. Michael and Daniel are actually very good friends. And so I think that'll come out in their interaction. So I think they're a wonderful pair. Michael is one of the co-founders of Laz Parking. If you're not familiar with Laz, they are over $1 billion company. Pre-COVID, they had over 15,000 employees. With COVID, they are now around 8,000 employees, but looking to scale back to 15 as soon as possible. And Michael specifically, he's a co-founder, but he's also the chief culture officer, if I have that right. I believe I do, Michael, the chief culture officer there. And the Laz Parking is one of the major companies that practices, embodies the conscious capitalism, including their current CEO, Al, is one of the Conscious Capitalism Inc. board members. And so they're deeply integrated in this whole world. And so Michael specifically is one of the extraordinary conscious leadership exemplars in our world. So I'm thrilled that he can take us away in leading the first component of our program, and then he will turn it over to Daniel.
Great.
So Michael, please.
Great, thanks, Kelly, and welcome everybody. It's heartwarming to see you all. I'm excited. Whenever I can hang out with Danny, it's like a good day for me. And it's funny, if you see my background, I'm actually in my garage. And when I think back to when I started my business, I lived in a garage, and 40 years later, I'm still in a garage. So it tells you how successful I've been. Although my garage is in a nicer neighborhood than it used to be. But I thought I would just share a little bit of my background, and then I really kind of want to pivot and talk a little bit about Laz's experience with Danny's work. Laz Parking kind of has a fun story because I'm actually from the East Coast. I spent a lot of time in Boston. I grew up in Connecticut, and I eventually moved out to California. And coming from Connecticut, I had two best friends, a guy named Jeff Karp, who lives in Boston, and a gentleman named Alan Lazowski. And upon moving out to the West Coast, I graduated college. I got this idea to start a valet parking company and called up Jeff and Al and told them my idea. And within a couple of months, Jeff started the same thing in Boston. Just raise your hand if you're in Boston, you've ever seen a Laz parking lot. I'm assuming, yeah. Thank you. You helped pay for this garage. So I appreciate that. But they were back east, I was out west. We started these parking companies within several months of each other. And to make a very long story short, over the next 28 years, Jeff and Al eventually merged their company together a couple years in. We started in 81. So 83, they merged and became Laz Parking. Al's last name is Lazowski. He's a big, wonderful personality. He's been my best friend from age 12. He's a beautiful human being. Took the name Laz. His nickname from Lazowski went to Laz. We became Laz Parking, and Jeff and Al grew on the East Coast. They grew their business to about 2,000 employees and about 90 million in sales. I, in Southern California, grew my business to about 700 employees and about 20 million in sales. And in November of 2007, we merged with a large French company, and we actually took our two companies, put them together. The French came in. They were called Vinci Park at the time. They're now called Indigo. And they bought a 50% interest in our company and gave us some working capital and some credit lines to go buy other parking companies. So over the next, from basically 2007 through today, through a series of acquisitions and mostly organic growth, we've grown to be in over 30 states and 400 cities. We're the fastest growing parking company in the country. We add about 6 new locations a week to our system. We've grown through COVID, although it's been a crazy year for us. We still continue to grow. And the mission of the company is to create opportunities for our employees and value for our clients. But we put the employees first. The kind of the magic that's unfolded for us, I think, if I can first say, the background of our company, the relationships that we had amongst the partners were so high level in their trust and implicit love and care for each other, that what grew out of that was just this culture of caring about people. And in the mission, if you talk about creating opportunities for employees, really what that comes down to is wanting to help people. And while we learned a lot about parking along the way, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we made good decisions and bad decisions, over the years, we really did learn how to run our business. But more than anything, we learned how to take care of our people and how to create an environment that fosters, trust. And we like to say Laz is a place where ordinary people can come and do extraordinary things. So over the years, we've become this people, we call ourselves a people first organization where, it's people over profits. We will always go out of the way to make the right decision to put people first, because in the long run, if you think of conscious capitalism, I mean, we are capitalists. We're in business to make money, but everything starts and begins with the people that work for us. If we can take an employee who, there's a great story of an employee who came to work for us. She applied as a cashier. She worked at a 99-cent store. She applied in Los Angeles to be a cashier. We said, we don't have any cashier positions. Can you drive a stick? She said, no, but we'll teach you. So taught her how to drive a stick. She became a valet parker. She became assistant manager. Within 1 year, she became a manager of that location, of the location she was working. It was one of our most difficult. It was a hotel with an elevator garage. It was a very difficult location. She had 20 employees and now making over $60,000 a year as a manager. And nobody in her family had even gone to college. I mean, those are the stories. That's what we're about. If we can create opportunities for people, then we're living up to our mission. So about 4 years ago, I met a gentleman named Malcolm Abner through another friend of mine. Malcolm's on this call. And I learned about conscious capitalism locally in San Diego. And, it kind of awakened me. It's like, I didn't know about conscious capitalism. Well, when I heard about it and started talking about it, I was like, that kind of sounds like what we do. So I ended up going to an annual summit in Austin. And it was like, kind of blew my mind, the quality of the people that I was meeting. It was about 250 CEOs and founders and speakers and thought leaders. And it was just a remarkable experience. If you haven't been to that national summit. I highly recommend it. It's kind of life-changing. And, you know, from there, I introduced my partners to it. And the more we got involved with conscious capitalism, the more we realized that, you know, this is our DNA, this is our tribe, this is who we want to hang around with. And through that, my partner Al met Danny at a retreat. And he told me actually very casually, oh, I met this cool guy. He lives in San Diego. I think he's a doctor. You should give him a call. And it kind of just went on the shelf. And I don't think, Danny, you and I ever really connected from that first connection. But over time, that connection kind of got renewed. And you know, every year we have a company meeting. We call it the LAS Family Reunion. We don't refer to ourselves as a family, not a company. And our reunion, the family reunion, it's not an annual meeting. Our office is the home office. We want to keep this with a very much a family feel. And so when we have these meetings, we look for people to come and speak with us and inspire us. And I got re-referred back to Danny and his work with conscious capitalism. And I was referred to an incredible book that Danny wrote, Leading Well from Within. And Danny's going to talk a little bit more about this. But Danny and I met for lunch actually at a restaurant in Del Mar, right on the beach. And it was actually one of the first restaurants or accounts I ever had. So it meant a lot to meet him there. And we kind of instantly fell in love with each other, not only sharing kind of the heart of conscious leaders, but also loving the beach and the ocean and surfing, and our families and our boys surfed. And we kind of had this like instant connection and started hanging out and surfing together. And from there, we started talking about our annual meeting, and Danny just became the perfect choice for us to come and speak to us and talk to us about conscious leadership. You know, his background as a doctor, an author, a speaker, like I was just getting enamored with this gentleman. And when I dug into his work and we learned more about it, we realized that so much of what we need to do as leaders is we need to bring to our teams the skills and the expertise to learn how to manage their lives, to manage themselves, to manage their stress, so they can show up as their best selves and leaders in service to others. And Danny came and spoke that first year and kind of just blew our mind with his intellect on understanding how the brain works and understanding how the human mind works and how we can shift our stresses. And the stress really comes from the things that we care about, right? When we care about something and the stakes are high, do we have the resources to meet it? That can create stress. And he taught us how to navigate our way through those types of high stress situations. And when you're growing at the rate that LAS is growing, trust me, there's a lot of stress. We're good to our people, but we work very hard and we're always moving fast. So that was the first year. I believe that was in 2019. So in 2020, we had pivoted and we were working with some other speakers. Actually, Raj Sisodia, the founder of Conscious Capitalism, was going to come and speak to us. And I was talking to Danny again. I can share this, Danny, if you don't mind. We were hanging out surfing and we had a great surf, and we went up to my back patio and we're hanging out in my jacuzzi and we're talking, and Danny starts saying, you know, I was telling him about the annual meeting and I'm like, you know, you should come, you know, I don't even know if you're going to speak, but you should. He's like, Michael, I'm working on this new program. I'm just getting into it. I'm really excited. It's called Appreciative Inquiry. And I would love to work with LAS with this new program. And so I didn't really understand what it was. We kind of bounced it back and forth. I got a general idea of it. And then Danny, myself, and a woman named Andy Campbell, who's our SVP of People and Culture, started collaborating. And Appreciative Inquiry, which we're going to get into today, and Danny's going to tell you more about it, is this incredible way of bringing forth the collective intelligence that sits within any group. So when we bring 200 people together at an annual meeting, and we're trying to draw forth the collective intelligence, in our case, we were really worried about health and safety, which this was all pre-COVID. We literally had our meeting on February 23rd, right? And our annual theme is hashtag be healthy, be safe. And Danny ran us through this Appreciative Inquiry program that just, first of all, it was kind of experimental because Danny hadn't really fully done it before. And I didn't know what we were getting into, but I just trusted Danny. And he came into the LAS family and got up on stage. We all kind of knew him from the previous year, so he had a lot of credibility. He did a little recap on his previous year's talk, and then he launched us into the program that we're going to be in today. And I will just tell you, at one point, once we were deep into it, we had 200 people in the room, just, massively engaged with each other. And Danny and I kind of crept to the corner of the room, and I said, Danny, holy shit, this is working. I can't believe it. And he was just laughing. He said, I took a flyer, but we had this remarkable experience. I could go on and on about the details, but I will tell you, we literally corralled 200 people in a room within several hours and brought out the best of the ideas on how we as a company could move forward with this theme of being healthy and safe, which originally was more about the safety of our employees and our customers in their cars and not having accidents and work comp and things like that. But in the COVID world, shifted to a much more meaningful theme, which is just, treasure your health and your safety, and let's all look out for each other in this incredible pandemic. So as heartbreaking as this pandemic has been on so many levels, I will tell you, our culture has never been stronger. We had to downsize by 7,800 people over a period of weeks to save the company. We pivoted, we're rebuilding it. The future looks bright. And I think because of the work we've done with Danny, because of our commitment to being conscious leaders and conscious capitalists, we have the foundation to rise above the challenges. And so with that being said, Danny, to say that Danny is one of my favorite people is an understatement. We've just become co-conspirators and brothers, and I love you, Danny. I welcome you, and I tell you all that you will never forget this moment in time to share this experience with Danny. And with that, Danny, take it away.
Okay, Michael, what I want to put it back to you, my brother. I am so blessed for our friendship. And I mean, when I said Kelly, I mean, you are in rarefied air with Kelly and Michael. And, part of where Michael is the Chief Culture Officer of LAS. He doesn't take that role lightly. In fact, the family culture that LAS embodies is a direct reflection of who Michael is. Rand Stagen had said, at a number of the conferences, he says, leaders get the organizations they deserve. So an organization will never outstrip the consciousness of its leader. It's just fortunate that LAS has such an incredibly conscious leader. And, Michael brings the heart to LAS. He brings the heart to LAS. And the other thing that I have the privilege about is I feel Michael's heart very, very personally in our relationship. So I'm not only talking about Michael as a leader, but actually, leadership's an act of influence. And it's not a role, because we have influential touch. Every moment of influence, it's when you think about conscious capitalism, and the mission statement of conscious capitalism is conscious capitalism, we exist to elevate humanity. And it's 4 tenets. It's higher purpose drives, all stakeholders being represented. And then it's about conscious leadership driving conscious culture. And Raj's data shows that companies that, his book Firms of Endearment, that engage conscious capitalism principles outperform the market by 10-1. So, this works. But ultimately, it's conscious leadership that drives conscious culture. And when you think about leadership is very simple. Leadership's an act of influence. But that's not enough, because it's influence. You could say that Hitler was a very influential leader. Leadership's an act of influence tethered to noble purpose, right? Leadership's an act of influence tethered to noble purpose. And when you think of the implication of that definition, and you understand how the brain's wired to connect, you very quickly realize you cannot not have influence. So the only question is, am I having positive? The awakening of conscious leadership is an awakening into the question. In this moment, am I having positive influence or negative influence in my environment? And then you think about, where are all the places where you have influence? And it's not just in your job, your role. If you're a parent, you have influence. If you're a friend, you have influence. If you're picking up your laundry, you have influence. Every touch point of relationship is an act of influence because we're in an ecosystem of highly interconnected relationships. So Michael has influence in my life. He has influence as a conscious leader in my life. And again, the awakening of conscious leadership is you cannot not have influence. Michael is very intentional with influence he has. And he is very intentional about engaging people in cycles of receiving and giving love. And I've seen him not only do this with me, I see him doing this with everybody. You know, we were down at Chip Connolly's Modern Elder Academy. He would go for long walks with people he just met. He was so interested in hearing their story. He would come back and say, I've met this most extraordinary person. That's who Michael is. You know, so it is, Michael, it is, I have a very intimate view as a conscious leader, as a friend, not only as, you know, co-founder of LAS, but more importantly as a friend. And that's where, you know, oftentimes conscious leadership is revealed. And if you want to unpack into, am I showing up as a positive influence or a negative influence? I'll just give you a shortcut to this. Shortcut for this is just ask the question. Am I showing up a demand or a resource for my relationships? I'm going to repeat that. Am I showing up as a demand or a resource in my relationships right now? Powerful question. And Michael shows up as a resource. He's resourced me like the blessings of, and particularly now. So we had fun. We had just an extraordinary time at LAS. It worked. And I have to give credit to why it worked. I am trained in Appreciative Inquiry through a group led by John Berghoff, who I consider one of the most masterful facilitators in the world. And he runs and leads the exchange community. exchangeapproach.com is the resource. And I got certified that year. And Appreciative Inquiry was founded by David Cooperrider in 1982 when he went into the Cleveland Clinic. And a lot of the consultants that maybe you're a consultant yourself, or you have brought consultants into your business. And the common approach, whether it's through lean or whatever other methodology, is to analyze problems in your company and to evaluate it and actually offer solutions to fix things. I mean, that's a very common consulting methodology. But you know, that doesn't fully leverage what's possible, because anytime you say what's wrong, there's also an implicit message, who's to blame? So when you're actually doing the work of what's wrong to get to solutions and diagnosing problems, it's actually in an interesting way devitalizing the system. So what was an epiphany for, and he was doing his PhD at Case Western Reserve. So he went into the Cleveland Clinic and he was tasked with actually looking at, you know, Cleveland Clinic is one of the top medical systems in the country. And he was charged with going into work with the executive team to do that work. But he saw that, you know, as he was actually leaning in and he was asking, instead of asking what's wrong, he just began to notice like a lot of extraordinary things happening. He began to ask the question, I'm noticing that you're doing phenomenal things around here. Can you tell me what you're doing that you're most proud of and it's going right? And what he discovered, that when you ask that questions, and he says questions create worlds. Questions create worlds. So if you ask what's wrong, it could put you in a world of suffering. But when you ask the question, what's going right and what are you most proud of? That creates a world of abundance. And he started noticing that the system came alive and they said, oh yeah, these things are going great. Let me tell you a story of why this is. And they began to reflect on all the people that are doing incredible things and the whole system came alive. Peter Drucker has this quote, says, the task of leadership is to create an alignment of strengths, making a system of weaknesses irrelevant. Right? So what he was doing, what he discovered, David Cooperrider, he discovered that when he asked a question that was generative, that was positive and uplifting, it unlocked strengths in the system. And then you use those strengths to begin to say, you'll be able to create an identity around the strength, and then you begin to imagine a glorious future and strategies and action steps to get there. It's a different energy that we're working with, which means it puts us into a larger energy of abundance. So in short, it's been said that appreciative inquiry of identifying, appreciative inquiry, and I just want to say John Berghoff in Exchange, apprentice, was mentored by David Cooper Ryder, and this is now the main certifying body in appreciative inquiry. So it's been said, appreciative inquiry is the best of what was, is, and could be. Let me repeat that. Appreciative inquiry is the best of what was, is, and could be. And they have an architecture of questions. They have both there's a whole science of the questions we ask, and there's a choreography where we're moving you into and out of groups to have extraordinary conversation. The exchange approach has a slogan: we engage and choreograph extraordinary conversations to unlock exponential outcomes. Who's in on that? Okay. Well, that's what we're about to do in this group. I'm about to take you through an appreciative inquiry. I'm going to ask you 3 questions that represent past, present, and future. These are questions about your own personal transformation. You can do the same questions at the system level, and you can ask the same questions of your company. But I'm going to ask you 3 questions that serves your personal transformation to advancing your awakening as a conscious leader, clarifying your strengths as a conscious leader, and then actually asking what is the greatest gift that you want to bring to the world that is part of elevating humanity. And that could be you on an individual basis, or that could be you part of your organization. So can I introduce you to the 3 questions? I want you to jot this down, and then I'm going to give you the essence of these questions. I'm dropping it into the chat right now. Can you all see the chat? Just a thumbs up. So I just need some movement. I want to show you another place. We have reactions down here. You see the reactions bottom? So this is a place where if you have, yes, there's, or if you love what you're hearing, there it is. Or if you want to celebrate what you're hearing, or if you're completely shocked by what you're hearing, or if you just want to kind of break out laughing, there it is. Okay. So you have all those reactions. Right on, Janice. Janice says first to go. Excellent. Thank you for playing along. So these are the 3 questions. First question is a question of the past. Can you share a story of a time in the past when you experienced a significant challenge that created a new awakening of conscious leadership for you? Second question. I'm going to ask you to reflect on each of those. In a moment, I'm going to put you into a paired interview. We're going to drop you in to a small breakout to answer these questions just with one other person in a private. We were recording in the main session. I just want you to know that we're on with those, when you're in a private session, a breakout group, that's not recorded. So that's confidential. Going from that past question, present, what gifts, values, strengths, or even superpowers did this awaken in you? Third question. If you had only 2 years left to live, what is your greatest life purpose work you would want to manifest in service of elevating humanity in the world? The mission statement of conscious capitalism. By the way, give me a thumbs up if you like those questions. Right on. Okay. So it's not me doing the magic. It's going to be you doing the magic by having these conversations. So we're unlocking your strengths. I'm not going to tell you anything from here on out. We're just going to unsurface this conversation first in a small group. Well, first I'm going to have you journal on this, and I'm going to give you another way how you're going to journal on this. Then the quickest way to psychological safety in any group is a choreography of 1, 2, and then many. So the 1 is, I want to give you an opportunity for you to reflect on these questions yourself. Hey, Rob, you said, can I repeat these questions? I'm going to even do one better than that. I'm going to give you the essence of these questions because it's a big, it's a big mouthful. So let me give you the like minimal amount of words to convey the maximum amount of meaning. I'm thinking you're wanting that, right? So I'm going to give you the essence of this. I want you to write down, and I'm going to share then my story. I'm just going to share my story to model away as a thought jogger for your story. Actually, your story is more important than my story. Okay, but I'm going to use my story to actually inspire for you to crystallize your story further. Does that make sense? Okay, so Rob, for you, okay, check this. This is a neat thing. Look at this. This is fancy technology. Can you all see that right now? So the essence of this is your story. The first part is your story of awakening conscious leadership. Conscious leadership. Your story of awakening conscious leadership. And usually that story often happens at a point of challenge, but not necessarily. It could have been at a point of aspiration. Okay. So far, so good, Rob. I'm going to come back and check with you. You just give me a thumbs up for each one of these. Then the next part is what the presence. What were those awakened? Come here. I'm going to ask you, Rob, what do you like the most? I'm going to give you gifts, values, strengths, or superpowers. What do you like the most? Superpowers. Okay. Awakened. Thanks to Rob, we're going to go with your awakened superpower. Let's not mess around because we're in the force field of miracles, right? Awakened superpowers. And then what is your gift? Your third question gets at what is your gift to the world? Gift to the world in terms of elevating humanity. ITO, elevating humanity, okay? What is your gift to the world? Does that get to the essence of it? All right, so now I'm going to want to tell you a story. And you know part of the story already. As you may know, that I've had a serious diagnosis recently, but I want to tell you how it led up to that. There were some critical parts of the story and how this informed. I'm actually, you know, even though I wrote this book.
Hey, Danny, can you go to full screen again?
Yeah.
Or,
okay. Right. So even though I wrote this book, which is the science and practice of conscious leadership, and I'm teaching on this, I have actually come into an awakening of my conscious leadership at a much more extraordinary level than I've ever experienced it before. I've actually fully awakened into my conscious leadership right now. I don't know if you can feel my intensity and my presence. And I'll explain to you why that is. So on November 12th, I do workshops, but I also have a coaching practice. And I don't know how many of you know, but, and I know it's not a secret because I coach Alexander McCoben. I've coached him since the beginning of his tenure on conscious leadership. So if you've ever experienced anything negative about Alexander, I bear responsibility for that. If you've ever experienced something positive about Alexander, he takes full credit. Okay. All right, but that's, you know, I've been serving you already, you know, and I do a lot of the programs on conscious leadership in our space. So I've been serving you a lot behind the scenes. So I'm working with this client, coaching, and I have this weird experience. I just can't get my words out. How many of your coaches are consultants? Okay, that's what I thought. Can you imagine how anxiety provoking? We make our money speaking, and you're talking to a client and you know what you want to say, and this is how I'm going. Ooh, ooh. I can't get my words out. And I'm 10 minutes into the call and I'm incredibly embarrassed that I've got to close the call. And my client is like, are you okay? I think you need to go be seen. And I realize as a physician, yes, I do. So I take myself into scripts. And long story short, I get a head MRI. And on the morning of November 12th, I was in the full picture of health with unlimited lifespan. And then by that evening, the ER physician came back in and told me, you have brain cancer. And you have multiple lesions in your brain. And now I'm terrified. I don't know. Either way, it's bad. Either I've got brain metastases or I've got very nasty primary brain cancer that's already spread. And so I go into this grief response. And the moment you walk through the door into that world of cancer, if you're blessed to have a family and dear friends, you're not walking through that doorway alone. By that evening, I pulled my whole family with me, and I pulled all my friends with me as well. And so we've all been on this journey together. And then my family came to the ER, and the grief response, as you can imagine, was just unbelievable. My oldest son just shred his shirt off, or shed his shirt off the body and crumpled it down. He was just devastated. They were all devastated. And then because of COVID, I admitted to the wards by myself. They sent me up to the floor. And I've had a full, not only have I had a MRI, but I did a full body CAT scan. And I was happy and reassured to know that I didn't have any cancer anywhere else in my body. So it looked like that way it was going to be a primary brain cancer. And I celebrated that. I was hoping for that because for me, metastases is far worse condition. So I'm going up to the wards celebrating that I've got primary brain cancer with a hope of that. And then I'm getting the dye flushed out, and I can only sleep 1 hour. The machine's beeping there, and I have these spikes of fear. So I want you to imagine you're lying on your back right now in the bed, and you've just had a diagnosis of primary brain cancer, or you don't know yet for sure, brain cancer. What's going through your mind at this moment? What do you think is going through your mind? What do you think your brain's saying to yourself? What's the default questions we asked? So what I was saying to myself, first, the spikes of fear was, what if in every catastrophe that could happen? Does this sound like familiar? You can imagine. Why me? Why now? What the hell does this mean? Like, why? None of which was general. And you remember I said that David Cooperrider spoke about words and questions, particularly create worlds. Those questions were putting me into a world of suffering. There's no upside of those questions. Like, why me? Where's that going to take me? Why now? Where's that question going to take me? So miraculously, because I've been through this Appreciative Inquiry changing, I found a different question. It popped into my brain that night. And the question that I had the wherewithal to ask was, what matters most now? Do you see the difference in the question? That's a generative question. And you could ask that in any adversity you're having, And by the way, that question has altitude. And what I mean by altitude, when you get sufficient altitude to your questions, a question gives an answer that leads to another question, that gives an answer that leads to another question. You just have to get the altitude of your first question high enough. And that question, what matters most now, is a very high altitude question. In fact, it's a question of purpose. First tenet of conscious capitalism. What matters most now? That's our first tenet. So that's the question I asked. And then I got an answer. My answer was, make every moment count. If your life is going to be shortened, make every moment count. And then that invited a question. So question, answer, next question, simple question, how? And then I got 2 answers, part A, part B, and they each had a how associated to it. The first was live intensely loving relationships. That was the first answer I got back on that part B, on the part A. How? Live. How do I make every moment count? Live intensely loving relationships every single moment. So right now, what you're feeling is the intensity that I'm actually expressing to you right now is I know this is a moment that counts that we will never have again. And I'm intending to make this moment count. You can feel my intensity and passion, right? Who can feel that? Actually, if you want to actually say you could, so if you feel that, go to the reactions, because you'll see if you're feeling that, I know that I'm super intense, and some people feel overwhelmed by it. So I just want to modulate my tone over here, because I want you to feel my expression of love for you. If you feel this is being an expression of love for you, please give me a sign that you're receiving it as love by actually kind of putting the heart in the window. I've got to get a picture of that. That's a beautiful picture. Okay. So, because the how of that was live every moment intensely in a cycle of receiving and giving love with any person you're touching. That's how you make receiving others with empathy and understanding and giving with authenticity and care. That, by the way, is the heart of conscious leadership. That's why Roger's book, Firms of Endearment, is Firms of Endearment. That's why John Mackey's new book, Conscious Leadership, speaks about bringing love out of the corporate closet. That's the heart of conscious. You know, people think about conscious leadership as more of a, like a mental thing, but the power source of conscious leadership is when it's connected to an awakened heart. That's the power source of conscious leadership. And then my second part B, in terms of how, it's being intensely wanting to leave a legacy with my work. And so what I'm doing is what we have done with our family, we've created a YouTube channel called Living Well From Within, because ultimately what we're doing is we're now living into the practice, living into the principles. We're embodying the principles in this time of challenge, but not our greatest meaning, our greatest purpose is we want to pass the lessons we're learning on our cancer journey. We want to pass this on to you, other families, whether they be your home families or your work families. So you can experience greater healing, growth, and flourishing wellness in a world that enables you individually or your work and heart, or you to inspire this flourishing elevation in your work and home families, in your communities, and be part of elevating the world at large. We already have over 100 videos in the channel. Magic is unfolding. Magic is unfolding. And I'll show you this later on. We have a bonus 30 minutes afterwards for anybody who wants to stay on. We have a bonus 30 minutes after we're done. And I will show you, in fact, I want to show you before you hop off, because I'm going to ask for your help. I need your help and support with something. I'm going to ask you for a very simple action step for you to provide support. Okay? Very simple. I'm just going to basically show you the channel and just simply ask you to click the button subscribe. And that's the simple ask. So I will get there in a moment. But I want to say you're already part of the story, and you'll see there's a playlist. There's a playlist, and this playlist, well, let me tell you about the playlist, but I want to just tell you this recording will be in the playlist. So you're already part of the story. We have a number of interviews with Alexander already in the playlist. So Conscious Capitalism is a very strong plot line in the playlist already. And you'll see that my mission is to not shine a light on myself. I am looking to actually shine a light on all other individuals and organizations that are doing the great work of elevation in the world. That's all. That's what this mission. And then by you subscribing and helping me create influence, you enable me, by you shining a light on me, it enables me to shine a light on all the great. So by you shining a light on me, you enable me to shine a brighter light on you. That's the strategy. Okay, so are you ready to go to answer these three? Do you want to have just, can I give you maybe 2 minutes? Because that's a lot, right? And in a moment, I'm going to put you into, how about we do this? I'm going to give you some instructions on how we're going to go into these groups. Okay. I would like to give you 2 minutes to just journal on these three questions. Take 3 minutes to journal on these questions. Okay, you're good enough to go. I mean, you don't have to have all your answers perfect because you're going to be interviewed. You just need to have enough of an idea of how you're going to start. So it's very important. In a moment, we're going to do what's called a paired interview. And it is very important. The choreography of this is very important because I want to put you in a choreography of receiving and giving love with each other. And if it was just a share, it would just, you wouldn't be put into that choreography. So what's going to happen is you're going to get into the room and you're going to have, so person A is going to be the interviewer and person A is going to interview person B for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes. Now you might say on each of these 3 questions. So, but there's not only interviewing. So Katie, if I can just share, I'm not going to ask you for your answers, but I want to just, if you would be willing to let me just imagine that I'm interviewing Katie. All right. And Katie, I want you to tell me how you feel about these questions. The key over here is not just the questions, because you could go in and say, hey, Katie, can you tell me the story about awakening? It's not, so I would go in and I'm going to embody the spirit of conscious leadership, which is a spirit, firstly, of ownership, but with openness, kindness, curiosity, presence. And so I'm going to lean in to actually give Katie nonverbal cues. There's as much importance of the tone of the question as the content of the question. So I'm going to lead in with, hey, Katie, can you share a time in your life where you had a massive challenge that led to a story of awakening for you, awakening of your conscious leadership? And you'll give me the answers. Now, here's where I'm going to have to restrain myself because you're going to get feedback where you're going to see your story and the temptation is, oh, me too. Let me tell you about me. You have to remember it's an interview. It's not a conversation. So you can give nonverbal cues such as, wow, that's amazing. Wow, incredible. So giving those kind of nonverbal cues is great. And then after you give me all those nonverbal cues, and you answer that one question, then we're going to ask you, what does that reveal to you about your superpowers, your awakened superpowers? And then you'll share that. And then you'll go into your third question. What's your gift to the world? And at that point, you can say, wow, that's extraordinary. So that all happens in 10 minutes. Now you could imagine you could take a week on this. This is not a TED talk. You want to see how deep you can go within 10 minutes. So you want to distill the essence. So what's going to happen is the interviewer is going to ask those questions, and then in sequence of those questions, person B, the interviewee, is going to, in sequence, give the answers to all those questions in that 10-minute block. So you're all going to ask those 3 questions, each in the block. You're not going to go backwards and forwards like A, past, you're not going to switch. You're going to complete the experience, or one choreography, and then you're going to switch. Now here's where the magic really happens. So now you've gone through these questions in 10 minutes and you've answered these questions in 10 minutes. The last 30 seconds of this is the interviewer. You're going to do 30 to 60 seconds. A reflection back. The reflection back is, Katie, now's where you can actually kind of go to town. You can say, Katie, wow, what I most appreciate about you and what you've shared is. So I'm feeding back in a distilled way in 30 to 60 seconds. So please hold to time because this is going to be part of the 10-minute block. And by the way, I'm going to broadcast these time codes in so you'll know where you are in space. And it's very important, even if you don't get to answering all 3 questions in one segment, just switch wherever you are, because the more important thing is that you both have equal voice of sharing. So you'll get these instructions, 10 minutes to start, switch with appreciation, next 10-minute block. But at the transition, this is that, you're in a choreography of receiving and giving love. You feel it? And then when I come out, you'll see that I'm going to ask you a question that's going to create a love fest in the group, okay? So, and then in 10 minutes, you switch and do the reverse. Any questions? While we're doing that, I've got to kind of set up the breakout rooms. I see we have a certain number of people on the call. So now I need to kind of set up the breakout rooms. But as I'm setting out the breakout rooms, please unmute if you have any questions. Okay. I've set up 13 breakout rooms. And actually, Kelly, I think, and Michael are going to, it's all random. It's like, this is like the Zoom gods. And if you have any challenges, please all come on video before each other. Do each other the favor as best you can on being all video, and then unmute. So we're about to go into the room. Are there any questions? Do those instructions feel crystal clear to you? Thumbs up. Let me just get a thumbs up in some way. All right. So now we've got to have we need a ritual to get into the room. So I'm going to ask every one of you to put your hands up like this. Clasp your hands. Okay. Now I'm going to have you go like this. We're about to teleport. We're about to teleport. I'm just keep going, keep going, keep going. And I'm going to create the rooms. I'm going to create the rooms, and I'm going to open all rooms and click the blue button. Click the blue button. Start this up. You know, we just had a dance party. We came back. So we said, who needs Zoom meetings to be boring? And we came back here to a rocking party. So who met their soulmate in that group? Rob, oh, the magic. Look at all of you who found like this unbelievable experience that you can't believe how deep you went in 10 minutes with somebody you've never met before. Isn't that wild? There's no such thing as a stranger, because you're in a cycle of receiving and giving love where anything's possible. So I'm going to invite some shares, and to do this in an orderly fashion, I want you to go to the participant window, because there, what you'll get is there's an invite. There's a blue hand over there. So I'll just take it in order. So I want to invite some shares, and certainly everybody, one of you can actually drop a note in the chat to say what you most appreciate about your partner. We can write love letters to each other. So I'd like to invite 2 or 3 shares in terms of what did you most appreciate about your partner and what your partner shared. What did you most appreciate about your partner? Easy ask, right? And then if you feel motivated, what was your insight? You could add that. What was your insight in that experience? And I want to invite Elizabeth, you're up first. So I just want you to know that I've registered. So we have like about, I'm watching time. Let's say we have about 10. Let me ask you, who's okay with going about 10 minutes longer, in the regular session? Are you okay? So let's go for like 20 minutes on these shares. And then I'm going to go into 20 minutes bonus time for us to stay longer. For those of you that can stay. But by the way, if you have to drop off, we will have the recording, and you'll get a recording in the link, so you won't miss anything if you need to drop off. So I'm just going to say that we'll probably have time for 2 or 3 shares. And I'll ask you kind of like for 60 to 90 second shares, so that we can make space. I'd love to get as many voices in those 10 minutes as we can. So Elizabeth, if you can lead us off well. So Elizabeth, I'm just inviting you to share. What did you most appreciate about your partner, or anything that arose in that experience?
So thank you. My partner is Aaron Boyd, and I was just so inspired. So Aaron is a young leader, and he was working in a gym, or it's called tricking, which is this really cool activity that you can, Aaron's probably better explaining it, but his story is that here he is working at this gym. He's driving an hour in each direction, and he learned that his manager was leaving. So he's going back, he's ready to go back to work, I think for the 3rd time he's been doing it in between school sessions, and his manager was leaving. And at 20 years old, he was given the opportunity to lead. And instead of leaving, he could have easily left with an hour each way commute and chose something more simple. He was getting, his heart was being touched, because he was helping even leaders younger than himself to learn how to improve. And so he was touched by his heart, And he stayed with it, and he became the manager of this gym and learned how to lead other people. And then ended up having this wonderful experience that he can take on into his life because he chose to step up. And he just has some really beautiful gifts as a human being. So I honor you, Aaron.
So Aaron, I want to give you a chance, because I'd love to invite your voice in a moment into that, because, and so Elizabeth, now can I shine a light on you? What does that reveal to you about your leadership that you can see that in Aaron? And just feel free. This is not about you. I mean, this is an example that I want people to understand what conscious leadership looks like. And for me, it's very evident. It's very evident to actually see why you are a conscious leader. What is your sense about what the reason that you can appreciate Aaron to this degree? What does that reveal about you?
I love when people are living their gifts and growing. I love helping people with that.
So that's the essence of conscious leadership. When you're talking about servant leadership, it's not ecosystems, it's ecosystems, right? So often we feel competitive and we envy others' stories. Your ability to celebrate somebody else's success in service of them elevating humanity is the heart of conscious leadership. So I want to just really acknowledge your extraordinary conscious leadership right now. Aaron, can I invite you into actually reflecting on what you most appreciated about, firstly about Elizabeth, and anything you want to share about your journey that's really been, where you think we can learn from your journey of conscious leadership?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I would love to talk. Just so everyone can know a little bit more about me, I'm a recent college graduate from University of San Diego. I graduated in May. And yeah, it feels great. Got that awesome virtual Zoom graduation, and I am all set now. But yeah, I really appreciated my time talking to Elizabeth. She taught me a lot. She's been able to have a lot more experience than me, as most of you guys have, obviously. But she talked to me about how she left her job in what she called the corporate world, so that she could go and help educate people on how to run their businesses better and manage their stress properly and run their businesses and their life better. And I think that's something that's really important. That not enough schools or businesses really make a priority. Keeping their people happy and making sure that their employees want to be there and are at a healthy level of stress that is not hurting them, but actually helping them to do better. And I think that's really special. And to me, that's what, as a business person, you should strive to be. And, from what I've learned about myself from my experiences is that, your team is your most important resource. It's not about you doing better. It's about having everybody do well together, and that really propels the business and the community that you make through your business forward. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I've learned from my experiences.
Hey, I want to thank you for sharing. And because, I want to come back to Michael. I'm going to ask Michael a question in a moment. So Michael, you run, culture for Lads Talking. I mean, you've got a very big imprint, in hiring. What would your approach be when you have heard somebody like Aaron have just shared that? Where would he be on the pantheon of candidates for a job at Lads?
I was just going to say, visit www.lasparking.com careers. No, I mean, Aaron, how old are you now? 21?
I'm 22 and I turn 23 next month.
Got it. I mean, just the fact that you're sitting on a call like this, this is not your average person by any means. The fact that you found your way here. Are you still in San Diego? I can see a palm tree.
Yeah, I'm based in San Diego. I have my house out there. I'm actually in Carmel, California right now, visiting my parents for the holidays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
but I mean,
do you surf, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially this whole last week, there's been a great swell in San Diego.
Exactly. Michael, we got a new surfing buddy. When I can get into the water again with you, you've got a new surfing buddy.
There you go. Absolutely. No, I mean, I think, Aaron, you're way ahead of the learning curve, just the fact that you're sitting here and just to hear you speak. So I'm sure, you know, any organization would be lucky to have you to get involved. So, you know, if you're in San Diego, if there's any way that I can help you, we're coming out of the trough of having cut back, but we're always looking for leaders, and we help people network. And, you know, your willingness to drive an hour to be a manager, you know, a lot of people your age are like, you know, if it's not on my phone and right in front of me, I'm not going to bother. So that's a big statement for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And however we can help you, you know, Danny and I are here to help you, especially if you're a local boy.
So if you've got any contact information, you know, we'll make sure that through Kelly, make sure you can get our contact information, and we'll be happy to, you know, to serve you. And Michael is offering himself to be a resource, and I would highly suggest that you take up the opportunity here, because if there's anybody that knows how to resource people, it's Michael.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate all of the help and support from all of you guys. And thank you for being so welcoming and letting me be a part of your conference.
Great. Well, if there's nobody else who's going to go, is it okay that I can now share like what I'm up to? I would love to share with you what my current dream is. Would that serve you well? So this is our family project. Can everybody see the screen? We have created a YouTube channel, which is the natural evolution of leading well from within. And it's a YouTube channel called Living Well from Within. And it's a journey to inspire healing, growth, and flourishing wellness in life. It's really about elevation. And so what we're doing, this is not, I mean, there's a cancer backstory over here because I'm providing hope for cancer on my journey. I'm getting world-class care in conventional medicine and integrative holistic medicine with having a spiritual transformation. So there's definitely a strong story of what does this look like for my cancer journey. But mostly what this is, it is a place where you can come in. It's a curriculum. Think of this as a Netflix series. It's your favorite new Netflix series that you can binge watch. And it's really, if you think of this as a Netflix series, it's an unfolding human drama that certainly has entertainment enough, only that it has transformational learning lessons that can enrich your life with healing, growth, and flourishing, and enable you to actually engage that, elevate your conscious leadership to spread that love in the world. And so, for example, I want to just show you what we're working into that. So there are 100 videos over here already. I'm already on day 34. So, and there are unbelievable people that are showing up, but I want to show you the kind of learning that you're going to get. So I'm going to click on this first one. And then I want to just show you the description below. I'm going to show you the description below. Hang on.
I'm missing you.
So the description below this video. So this is Danny's message for Zach and Dill after his brain cancer diagnosis. So I want to show you how we learn and grow. How we learn and grow. And the most effective method skill to facilitate learning and growth is called an active learning cycle. So now we're getting meta. So it's active learning cycle. And essentially, what an active learning cycle involves, it's learning how to learn more effectively every step of the way on your journey. It's the meta skill that actually helps you learn and grow itself. Everybody good? So there are 3 parts of this active learning cycle, and this is based and adapted from Kolb's theory of experiential learning, right? So the first part is content and experience. And most programs have content and experience, but content and experience alone doesn't create change. And the evidence is history repeats itself. And by the way, when you go to conference, I mean, this is what conference is all about. They jam pack you with content, but they don't give you enough place for reflection. So content alone is important for change, content experience alone, but it doesn't alone create change. What does create change is high quality reflection on that content. That high quality reflection has both, there's an attitude of reflection, and then you see there's a form of the question. So when I was saying early on that the attitude of reflection was taking ownership for your growth and learning, and then the qualities or the attitudes, openness, kindness, curiosity, presence, and actually coming back to purpose always. So think about purpose is on the outside. The first step of conscious capitalism, when you know what your purpose is, it then, the purpose outside the loop curates the content and experiences that you want to expose yourself to that leads into the reflection, right? With the attitudes of ownership, openness, kindness, curiosity, presence, and always coming back to purpose, holding that thread. And here's the choreography of the questions. I asked the best of what was, is, and could be. A generative question. What matters most now? And then that leads into inspired action, which then leads to new experiences, right? And that's not a closed cycle. If I turn it on its side, it's a spiral. It's a spiral of experience, reflection, action, experience, reflection, action, experience, reflection, action. And that's the upward spiral of growth and learning. That's the upward spiral elevation. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're building active learning cycles into each one of these videos. So you'll see me distill, and I'm working with my book editor, Amanda Rooker, who's just the most extraordinary person. She helped edit the book. She's also in the exchange community. She's helping me write all of these active learning cycles into every one of the videos that lend themselves to a transformation experience. So that's the value that you're getting. This is, and when you look at this, what you understand when you look at this is that the curriculum was never on the slide deck. The curriculum's what's on deck. Life is the curriculum. And we're in a time with incredibly rich curriculum. We're in the time of COVID. There's a curriculum of suffering. We're in a time of awakened systemic racism. That's a curriculum. We're in a time of deep divided political polarization. And that's not only on a local, like a national basis, that's a global basis. So imagine if you put that into the active learning cycle, and there's a thread, I'm going to show you the thread of all of these. You could actually use this in the chapter, Kelly. You can actually, you have an infinite curriculum because it's literally life is an infinite curriculum. If things are going well, or if they're not. So what I do this is how I work with my coaching client. This is the first construct I deliver for my coaching clients. First construct. And then the rest of the coaching, 6 months, is just running active learning cycles. So I want to clarify, I want to highlight this, I want to clarify their purposeful coaching, and then we're on this active learning cycle. And I used to actually have people do like extensive intakes. I don't find it necessary anymore. I will allow them to show up with whatever they want to show up with. I used to have them come up with bullet points because I wanted to be clear. I can actually distill in the first 5 minutes of a conversation what would serve. So if they tell me I had this extraordinary week, put in the active learning cycle, say, well, tell me more about that. Why did you have such an extraordinary week? And how could you bring more of that into your life? Or they might say, this week sucked. I'm agnostic. Tell me your life sucks or tell me it's great. Either way, we're going to learn, right? So, it sucks. Well, that's interesting. I approach it with openness, kindness, and curiosity. Well, that's what are we here to learn today? And what actions do we want to take to actually, one of my coaching clients is Todd Palmer. And he's just written this book, which I did the forward, and he's done an epilogue. And his book is called From Suck to Success. I'm just thinking of that right now. So it's coming out I think in February next year. And I mean, this is so if somebody tells me my life sucked this last week, well, that's interesting. How are you going to make it more successful? Back into the active learning cycle. So here in the first video, you'll see that I've got essentially experience, like a distilled experience, reflection and action. So look at the power of this. Look at the power of this. So here's the experience, distilled experience. So this video was recorded after Danny received news that the most likely diagnosis of MRI was a high-grade glioblastoma brain cancer. Since this was also before the brain biopsy, Sue, Danny's wife, asked him to film a video where he could share a message with his boys, just in case anything happened, get a stroke, a bleed, and then I'm done, right? What is the message that I wanted to share? So the message he shared, I mean, this was within the first 24 hours of my diagnosis. And you see me, like you can imagine, you can put yourself in my shoes, and I am raw and real and like just shooting this video unscripted, and I still had word block. I mean, I'm still having a hard time getting my words out. The message he shared with Zach and Dill expressed the deepest wish for them to live a loving life. Think about that, how that restructures, just that simple message, to live a loving life. So firstly, to love God. I want them to love whatever that field of the mystery is. I want them to develop a relationship with a deeper source of inspiration, or however they conceive it. I want them to love intensely their relationships in their life. So you can imagine, I don't want them to actually grieve so deeply that they're going to exit from life themselves. I want them to love even more. It's my deepest wish. And I want them to love the planet and be a good steward of the planet. And I want them to, love life itself. Love living life itself and just experience like abundant joy and flourishing life. So then here's the reflection for you. Here's the reflection for you. If you were given a life-threatening diagnosis, or you knew you only had a short time to live, who would you reach out to? What message would you share? And here's the big question. Why wait? Why wait? Then the actions. What actions do these answers inspire you to take now, today? You see the activation around that, of transformation? That's the awakening of conscious leadership at every level. So